Jumbo Radio across Scotland. This is Jumbo Radio News.
Latest news across Scotland. This is Jumbo Radio. A 6-month-old baby was taken to hospital after a crash near Tesco's in Linwood, Bridge Street at around 5:20 p.m. on Saturday the 7th of July. Two vehicles collided near the supermarket, and after emergency services arrived, the baby, a passenger in one of the cars, was taken to hospital. They were checked over as a precaution. A man was seriously assaulted in a wooded area of Drumchapel area of Glasgow on Saturday 6th of July at around 3:10 p.m. The 42-year-old man was taken to the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital after the attack and is in a serious but stable condition. Three men aged 44, 48 and 56 have been arrested in connection with the assault near Monymusk Place, and inquiries are ongoing. Sir Keir Starmer has vowed to save hundreds of jobs at Scotland's last oil refinery as he sets Labour sights on defeating the SNP at the next Holyrood election. The Prime Minister, who travelled to Edinburgh on Sunday the 7th of July for his first official engagement, said he was very concerned at the situation at the Grangeworth plant and said work has already begun on a rescue plan. UK Chancellor Rachel Reeves has ordered an assessment of state spending in order to understand the full extent of the challenge. She stated that we have faced a legacy of 14 years of chaos and economic irresponsibility, so asked the Treasury officials to provide an assessment of our state spending and said the results will be presented before the end of the month. She also stated that she would not hesitate to take difficult decisions to create economic growth as it's our national mission. And now for African news. The coup-hit nations of Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso ruled out returning to the West African regional bloc, whose division could further jeopardize regional efforts to curb violence spreading across the region. Military junta leaders of the three countries met for the first summit in Niamey, the capital of Niger, after their withdrawal from the West Africa bloc as ECOWAS in January. And that's the latest from Jambo Newsroom. I'm Andrew Biney.
Need security? Call Alpha One Plus Limited, a strategic security resourcing platform that connects you with licensed security personnel. We cater for our clients' security needs, from manned guarding, door supervision, event security, all the way up to close personal protection. Alpha One Plus Limited, your one-stop security solution. Call now at 44-074-2526-7909 or send us an email on info@alphaoneplus.com.
Do you live in North Lanarkshire? Are you looking for a job? Are you looking for funding and support to start your own business? Well, if you're a parent and you live in North Lanarkshire, that's towns such as Cumbernauld, Shotts, Wishaw, Bellshill, Kilsyth, Motherwell, Coatbridge, Moodiesburn, etc., then PeoplePlus can help you. PeoplePlus are running the North Lanarkshire Working for Families program. At PeoplePlus, we have brilliant employment and self-employment opportunities for parents who live in North Lanarkshire. On the Working for Families program, we support parents who live in North Lanarkshire by preparing you for employment or assisting you in starting successful self-employment. We have various accredited training courses that we can fund and put you through, and this will certainly help you in your employment journey. If you've been toying with the idea of starting a business, we'll be happy to help you start up. If you already have a business you've started, we'll be very happy to help you with funding, advice, etc. We're flexible and we will work around your schedules, as being a parent takes priority, of course. If you like a full-time or part-time job, some training, a placement, etc., we can support you, prepare you, help with your CV needs, interview prep, training needs, and job opportunities. So how do we help you with self-employment, you ask? Well, you get a dedicated and experienced business advisor to support you with a range of self-employment topics, such as marketing and pricing, business research, market research, access and finance, bookkeeping and accounting, HMRC and company registration, tax and VAT, sourcing suppliers, expert advice on efficiently reporting your earnings to HMRC, establishing or diversifying your customer base, and access to other support networks. We also help with employability by giving you a dedicated key worker who will support you and guide you through the process of finding suitable work, help with training and accreditation, customized support to suit your needs, support to write or upgrade your CV, expert advice and techniques for interviews, including mock interviews, assistance with job applications, and help with job searches. Eligibility to join the program. You must be a parent and you must live in North Lanarkshire. Just contact BB McKinley at email scotland.ef@peopleplus.co.uk. That's scotland.ef@peopleplus.co.uk, or call the number 07814 061 565. That is call or text 07814 061 565. Contact us today and we'll be happy to support you into work or self-employment.
Established in 2006 as one of Glasgow's original mobile massage therapists, we deliver high-quality treatments with the ambition to forge permanent relations with clientele. We specialise in on-site massage, a type of treatment that has been specifically designed to complement the convenience and availability of massage at work. It is performed with the use of a specialist mobile chair, without the use of oils or the need to remove clothing. At Massage and Glow, we believe that massage should be a part of your everyday lifestyle. Regular massage not only relieves stress and tension, but also stimulates blood circulation, can help with pain management, and promotes good mental health. A must for your busy schedule. Various holistic therapies available. Contact us now on 07530 905 152 for your mobile massage therapist.
On your mobile phone and on all social media platforms. Jambo Radio.
Hello and welcome to TouchPoint with Tayo on Jambo Radio, the show where everything matters. I'm your host, Tayo Oweye. On TouchPoint, we explore vital issues that concerns Africans in the diaspora and beyond, educating minds and touch on trendy issues. We engage issues that concerns realities in Africa for Africans, wherever they may be in the space of the world. And you remember last week, let's just have a recap. We had one of the backroom team members last week here in the person of Inoloa, taking us through how she has broken boundaries and looked at previous episodes in the show. And it was a wonderful time. And you can also go back to watch that. It's live on Jambo Radio Scotland, YouTube and Facebook. Today on Touchpoint with Tayo, we are still breaking boundaries, and we are living boundless in a world with boundaries. Today is just special. I have someone that is joining me live in this Jambo Radio studio from another city in the United Kingdom, in the name of Blessing Adogame, who is involved in education and technology. She's a student and she's also a professional. She's a global speaker and the author of the book Bound to be Boundless: The Journey of a Third Cultured Child. Hi, Blessing. How are you doing?
Hi, good evening, afternoon, morning.
Wherever we may be. And I love the shirt, Bound to be Boundless. Come on. Yes. That's great. I decided to have different colors because, if we're talking about Bound to be Boundless, it means we can be, of different colors, different personalities from, wherever we are coming from, and all sorts. Yeah. How are you doing today?
I love it. I'm good, thank you. I'm good. It's the weekend, resting from a busy week, but I'm well.
I know. Thank you. Thanks for coming today. And viewers, as usual, you can join the conversation on YouTube platform on Jambo Radio Scotland, and the same on Facebook and Jambo Radio Scotland. Also on Twitter, you can join the conversation on jamboradio.scot, which is X, and also on Instagram at jamboradio.scotland. If you want to send an email, you can. We are open to receiving your message at info@jamboradio.co.uk. Send us your comments and your contributions. Send us your questions also. We are here with Blessing to talk and about Bound to be Boundless, the journey of a third culture child, breaking boundaries. And let's see how it goes today. Yes. So, Blessing, how did this book come to be? Let me see. Yes. Bound to be Boundless. What is it about a third culture child? What's the story behind it?
So, I feel like I always say this. I always give this disclaimer, but of course, to the viewers here, they might most definitely don't know me. So, I was born in Nigeria, and I think before the age of 2, my family moved. We left Nigeria to live in Germany. That's where I grew up for 6 years. My first language was German. It was my first experience in a predominantly white country. And it was kind of like a taster, because after living in Germany for 6 years, I moved to Scotland for 10 years. That is where, to date, it's been the one country that I've lived the longest in my life.
Wow.
And slowly the United States is getting to that 10-year mark. So it's kind of scary. But after living in Scotland for 10 years, I moved, or myself and my family, we moved to the United States for 8 years. And last year I moved back to the UK, specifically in England, to pursue my master's. And so the idea of a third culture kid is someone who grows up in a country outside of the country that they were born. In my case, it's many countries, it's not just one. But it's that whole idea of being a third culture kid, a global citizen, a place where many different places around the world you can call home.
Okay, let's first do something. Some time ago on this show, we had some teens, and the way they changed their language from the Scottish intonation to the Nigerian stuff. So, can you welcome our viewers in all of the languages that you know?
Yeah. Put me on the spot. I don't know. So Nigerian, I don't even know what to say. Just
do the pigeon.
Welcome. I'll do pigeon. Pigeon, I can only do small, but that's a little bit to do. And then in German, of course, hello, hello Leute, wie geht's? Ich heiße Blessing. Scottish.
It's just
I
a
don't know the
normal.
language, but
It's a normal English.
Accent, yeah, it's just a little bit of Scottish, and then of course American. Even though I lived in the US for 8 years, I didn't pick up any part of the accent, which I'm grateful for.
Let me ask this question. How has your personal journey shaped your approach to breaking boundaries in your professional life?
I think, well, I know that my personal journey has not only shaped, but breaking boundaries is my personal journey, because whether it's breaking boundaries in the sense of country walls, or boundaries in the sense of I look one type of way, people expect me to act a certain type of way, but the environment that I'm in is completely contrary to what I look like and the stereotypes attached to that. So honestly, I think that I grew up learning how to break boundaries. But again, at that point, I didn't necessarily see it as that. I just saw it as, well, this is who I am. Not many people that I've met are like me. And I need to find my place in this world, because at the end of the day, I have many places in the world that I can call my home. And so I think the initial way that I learned to break boundaries was just making sure that I can create a home or create a new home. So, when I moved from Germany to Scotland, Scotland wasn't a home for me. Scotland was just a place that I was living with my family. But as time went on, I had to learn how to, okay, break the boundary of this is just a temporary space that I'm living in, and create a home, make memories, make friends, build roots, that kind of stuff. So that's where it at least started. And then as I started to realize that, oh, okay, it's more than just that. That's when I started to frame, this whole terminology of breaking boundaries.
Boundaries.
And yeah, I started to do it in more ways than just personal.
It's reading the book Bound to be Boundless. I mean, it shows quite a number of things I'd also learned personally from this book. But we'll talk about the book later. Let me. I know we can't actually probably finish all of this today, but the length that we can get to, we'll get to today. What are some of the key boundaries that you have encountered in your professional and personal life, and how have you navigated it?
One of the more recent boundaries, I would say, is doing my undergraduate career in the United States. For the first few years, I was a dependent of my dad. And that meant that as I was studying in university, I was categorized as a international student. And for my family, this meant that even though we moved 1 year, even though it had been 1 year that we had moved from Scotland to the United States, I had to start higher education. I had to start university. And if you know anything about university in the US, is that compared to Scotland, is a lot of money. And because our move was seemingly abrupt, we didn't have savings and everything to pay for my tuition. And so that was the first boundary, because as an international student, there are no scholarships if your visa is that. And so it was a boundary that I was like, well, how am I supposed to pay for 5 years of university?
Wow.
Scholarships only do so much when they are eligible, when it comes to being an international students. But yeah, it only went so far for me. And that was one of the things that actually led me to break out of the shell that I was in. The shell of being quiet, the shell of being timid and just naive, and just, I wanted to put my head down, because ideally I wanted to actually do my undergrad university in Scotland. And so when I realized I had to stay in the US, I felt bad for myself, because I left my friends, and I now had to pay so many thousands of dollars instead of basically getting free education. And so, as I said, that was the one thing that made me leap out of this box I had myself in, because I knew that there is no way that I can get through the 5 years of university if someone doesn't know me. Someone doesn't know my name, if I don't put myself out there to get opportunities, to get scholarships.
Wow. So these boundaries, how has it impacted you on a personal, and your personal growth?
I still would say that for the majority of my life, I had been living a bound life. Or in my book, I call it a default life, or a default path. I was just doing things that either I was told to do, or I would see people doing, and I would just follow this like blueprint that was carved out for me. And so, yeah, much of my life journey so far has been being in boxes and having labels that would define me, whether it was I'm Nigerian but not really Nigerian, or I'm an international student, or I'm a Black woman in tech. There are so many labels that I put on myself, especially if you think about how I grew up. I had and I dealt with identity crisis. And so because I couldn't really say that I was fully Nigerian or I was fully German, I loved labels. Anything that would make me feel like I could understand a bit better of who I was, I would attach myself to it. But that is a bound in itself, because it made me feel like that was all I could be. And yeah, I mean, my book talks about how just because you're one thing doesn't mean that you can't be another. And just because you're in a box doesn't mean that you can't step out of the box. And so the bounds, though at that time, I think it's one of those things where if you visualize a box, you're inside the box, that's all you see. So you don't necessarily see as a bound, you just see that that's where you are.
That's where you, yes.
Once I stepped outside of the bound, I was like, oh wow,
Something so good.
There's so much more to life.
So the reason I had to wear this is just because reading your book also showed me that, I mean, when that song, the coat of many colors, or Joseph wearing the coat of many colors, it's so symbolic. It just emerged for me, knowing that there are boundaries to all of these things. And I wanted to be specific about some of specific challenges you had faced. There's so many challenges in this book, so many that I can't imagine you at this time faced with this lot of challenges. How have you? Can you just give an example of one or two of those challenges and how you overcame them?
Yeah, sure. So during the pandemic in 2020, I was diagnosed with a benign tumor.
Wow.
And that, if you can remember back to COVID was already one challenge in itself.
Yes.
Now adding a health diagnosis. And basically what it meant getting that diagnosis during the pandemic was that hospitals and doctors were mainly treating COVID patients. Everyone else was like, you can wait, we'll put you on the backlog. But here I was dealing with this very chronic pain, and simple medication, over-the-counter Tylenol or paracetamol wasn't helping me. And it was tough because I kept going to these doctors. They would either turn me away because of my age, because I'm a woman, because of the fact that I'm healthy.
Wow.
And it was a huge challenge to me because it really forced me to advocate for myself, because many times I could have just come back from the hospital or come back from a doctor's appointment and say, well, the doctors know best, so surely if they say that there's nothing wrong with me, there's nothing wrong with me. Well, something that I learned is that, no, well, I'm the one that's going through this pain, and it's my responsibility to share with them the intensity that I'm feeling it. And it honestly, it really taught me how to advocate for myself. And if there's any way I can turn this around for any of the viewers, is that, especially when it comes to health, I know the NHS, the American health system, is not always the best, and there can be a lot of waiting time and all of that stuff. But it's one of those things to prioritize your health, because something that I learned the hard way was that without my health, I really could not do anything.
Yeah.
And so it's important to not even wait until you're in a very debilitating situation, but do the regular checks if you can, different things like that. Yes. Another challenge I would say was kind of going back to this whole moving from Scotland to the US.
Yeah.
That to date still has been one of my biggest challenges. And I say that because, of course, moving from Nigeria to Germany to Scotland, I was still pretty young to really understand anything. But this time I was 16. I had made friends, I had made memories I could remember, and I could really feel the weight of this move. And so the challenge here was that, well, after 10 years of building a life in Scotland, I had to pick up everything, or just leave some things and move my whole life to another continent, to another school. And it was tough. It was tough for me and my brother. I started specifically high school in my last year, which everyone already knew each other. I was in classes with people that were 4 years younger than me. I felt like I was in an American high school movie. Honestly, I mean, I didn't get bullied or anything like that, but I would spend my lunchtime in the bathroom because I had no
Wow.
friends. It was that deep for a full
Wow.
year, and that for me was the biggest challenge because it's like how can I just pick up everything from where I left, and
The scratch.
it was really tough. And again,
Wow.
I think connecting that to what I mentioned about going to university,
Yes. Yeah.
I spent a whole year being very quiet. No one knew me at the high school that I went to, but I needed to come out of that if I really wanted to make the most of it in university.
Yeah. Something that actually emerged for me was saying that August 11th was August 11th was so special to me because that's my day, and reading it, I said, "Wow, August 11th, wow!" And this two things. The second thing was I also had a benign tumor like you. I was like, oh my god, so many things I'm sharing with Blessing, and it's just so awesome to also read that who encourages the encourager in the house, who checks upon the friend that always checks on others. Viewers, who encourages the encourager? At this point, we'll go for a break, and after the break, we'll pick up a conversation with Blessing. We're still talking about breaking boundaries, and we're still talking about bound to be boundless. After the break.
Need security? Call Alpha One Plus Limited, a strategic security resourcing platform that connects you with licensed security personnel. We cater for our clients' security needs, from manned guarding, door supervision, event security, all the way up to close personal protection. Alpha One Plus Limited, your one-stop security solution. Call now at 44-074-2526-7909 or send us an email on info@alphaoneplus.com.
Established in 2006 as one of Glasgow's original mobile massage therapists, we deliver high-quality treatments with the ambition to forge permanent relations with clientele. We specialise in on-site massage, a type of treatment that has been specifically designed to complement the convenience and availability of massage at work. It is performed with the use of a specialist mobile chair, without the use of oils or the need to remove clothing. At Massage and Glow, we believe that massage should be a part of your everyday lifestyle. Regular massage not only relieves stress and tension, but also stimulates blood circulation, can help with pain management, and promotes good mental health. A must for your busy schedule. Various holistic therapies available. Contact us now on 07530 905 152 for your mobile massage therapist.
On your mobile phone and on all social media platforms. Jambo Radio.
You're welcome back to TouchPoint with Tayo on Jambo Radio, Scotland. And I'm still with my guest, a tall, cultured, not a kid again, a touch cultured lady. Live with Blessing Adogame. And you can send your questions as usual on our YouTube platform and Facebook platform concerning breaking boundaries. Have you broken boundaries? But first, Blessing has some questions here to know whether you are able to break boundaries. If you've not gotten this book, I mean, you can go ahead and get it. I ordered mine on Amazon, so you can get this book. To know whether you are ready to break boundaries or not, these are some challenges for you to, very, very short ones. So imagine you have an appointment at 5 p.m. and you set your travel schedule to arrive by what time would you arrive? You have an appointment by 5. Would you arrive at 5 p.m. or you arrive at 4:45 p.m.? Your friends open up to you about something you did that hurt them. What is your first instinct? A, apologize. B, give an explanation in defense. Start answering those questions. How do you answer the where are you from question? The country that I was born or the country I currently live in, if different? 2 more questions. When you go to the doctor, when do you go to the doctor? A, regularly, regardless of if I have a reason. B, rarely, only when I need to. And lastly, think about a recent setback. How did it affect your faith and hope? A, it was an opportunity to strengthen my faith and find hope in a new direction. B, felt disheartened and struggled to maintain hope in the face of adversity. As you answer those questions, Blessed, let's review the answers to them. If they all have is, what happens?
If I remember correctly, they are boundless.
If they all have is, they are boundless. So if they have B's, if they have 3 or more B's, what happens? They are bound. So you can imagine, if the first question is that you will know whether you are bound or you are boundless. If you have an appointment by 5 and you get there by 5, you are bound. But if you get there by 4:45 p.m., then you are boundless. Thank you so much. Get the book. You will see more of these reflections in it. Listen, let's get to about impact and innovation. Can you discuss a project or achievement that exemplifies your ability to live boundless and innovate in life? I mean, current in your current place of work, even as a professional. Though you are a student, I know you're still a professional.
Yeah.
And you can just give us an idea of where you work and what you do there, and how the project you're doing exemplifies a life of boundlessness.
Sure. So as much as I'm doing my master's at UCL in education and technology, I'm also working part-time at Rewriting the Code, which is a global community that celebrates and supports women in technology. And honestly, I would say even just the way I got the job was something that exemplifies being boundless, because the community is solely or majorly based in the US. And last year, August, the same time that I was moving to the UK, the community was also opening or expanding into the UK as well. And at that moment, I remember I was looking for part-time roles, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but I didn't want to work in Tesco. I didn't want to work retail. I wanted to work in a role that helped me with what I was studying at uni. And so I remember emailing the CEO and the director that they newly appointed in the UK. And I said, hey, I've been part of this community as a member for how many years, and I'm currently looking for a part-time role. If there's anything that's available, I would love to just generally help out any way that I can. And through that, they got on a Zoom call with me, and long story short, my role was created based off of me reaching out like that.
Wow.
And yeah, I was so grateful to them. But again, it introduces the idea of, if you don't ask, you don't get. And if you don't step out, then how far can you really go? And so that's the way of me even just getting that helped me to understand that, okay, even in this role, I can push boundaries. I can ask. If they say yes, they say yes. If they say no, they say no. But I've been able to help them grow their community from probably like less than 100 members to over 2,000 members now.
Wow.
And yeah, it's been an amazing journey. I've been able to meet a lot of different members. I've been able to give students and early career professionals job roles almost, because I know that it's not easy in this economy.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, people have rent to pay, they have food to eat. And so it's something small that we could do. And again, it's one of those things that if I didn't ask, they wouldn't get.
That was a drop mic moment for me. Even though I've been hearing it, if you don't ask, you don't get. But knowing very well that you asked and a role was created for you just because you asked.
Yeah.
Nothing is impossible. All things are just possible. Wow. There's a question on our YouTube channel by a friend. And Olawale Akinwale says, do you have any advice on how to start feeling that the host country is home? Is it just a decision and hence a sharp switch, or are there any tips that help?
Yeah, it's a great question. I definitely think it's both an internal and external pursuit. In my book, I talked about how I was in the US for 1 year, but I was there physically, but
You're not
mentally,
there.
I was not there. And so it took time for me to switch my mind and be like, okay, this is where I'm living now. It doesn't mean that it's my home for the rest of my life, but how can I bloom where I'm planted? And so that way you start to put yourself out more, you start to talk to more people. And I would also say that people can be home, right? In each country, my family has always been surrounded by Nigerians, so it made me feel more at home. I could go to the shop, get Indomie, I could get pounded yam, different things like that. Environment, like the external environment, really matters. But then also internally, because you have to be able to talk to yourself and say, yes, though I'm here temporarily for 3 years, am I going to take advantage of this environment, or am I going to feel down and be woeful because, well, this isn't my home? And, even moving back to the UK, England is still different. It's a different country from Scotland.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
as much as I remember when I was moving, I was like, well, I'm going back home. When I've lived here for almost 1 year now, and I'm like, England is still very different.
Different.
I've learned that the hard way. But again, it was a conscious effort that I had to put in to make sure that I am enjoying this place. Like if I'm spending money, if I'm spending time, like let me create it, let me curate it so that I'm actually enjoying it, and seeing it as home for that point in time.
Thank you so much. I mean, you can be a curator of your own life. I will go back to the issue of impact and innovation. I mean, you made mention of the numerical growth in terms of rewriting the code and where you are serving right now. Aside from that numerical increase, how else do you measure the impact of your professional work?
When I was speaking to the CEO and the director about, okay, how I want to get involved in things like that, I vividly remember that one of the things I told them was that I'm here not just to ensure that we grow in numbers, but that there's depth in the community as well. I don't just want to say that we have 2,000 members, but then everything is very surface level. People don't know each other. It's just, at that point, I don't really see the value in it. And so I have tried to make sure as much as possible to have this like personal touch with different members that I come across. An example could be I see something online about said member and I write them a card, and it's something that they don't expect. It's not on company time that I'm doing this, but it's a small personalization piece that I like to do to new people that I meet, making sure that they're okay, making sure that they feel part of this community, because I know what it's like to be in a field or in an industry or in an environment and you feel alone. And if we say that this is a community, I want everyone to feel like they're a part of the community. So
Wow.
yeah, I make it my personal mission, not just because it's my role, but because I want to see people find their home in a sense.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you a lot. How do you maintain resilience and mental health while navigating this world of boundaries, or world with boundaries, or world of boundaries, whichever
Yeah.
one that sounds appropriate?
Right. I'll be very honest and say that it's not been easy. It has definitely not been easy. But I also know that I couldn't have gone through any of this without the help of God. My faith is what keeps me going. It's my foundation. It's the only reason why I'm here today. And so, even though I only started having a personal relationship with God around 2017, 2018, having that personal relationship with God has helped me to look back at my life and being like, okay, I now understand why this happened in this way. Because I remember growing up, I couldn't make sense of it. I didn't understand why me, why me, and that affected my mental health. Because again, I would try to find my identity in everything that you can think of. I tried because I said, well, if I'm not Nigerian enough, I'm not German enough, I'm not British enough, I'm not American enough, then where am I enough? And I found that I am enough as a child of God, and that is the identity I need to
Wow.
attach myself to, despite wherever I live, despite my job, despite what I'm doing in life.
That takes me to the question of the global citizen. Rethinking global citizenship within this digitalized world. What's your view about it? Because, I mean, you're not here, you're not there, you're not Scottish, you're not English, you're not American, you're not even Nigerian enough. I mean, whichever way you want to say it.
Right.
How do you classify or emerge as a global citizen in all of this discourse?
It's one of those things where I've recognized that a lot of people are actually global citizens. But I think it's one of those things where in life, you can choose how you want to identify yourself. And so I'm not too much different from other people who have had the same kind of like living in different countries. I've just decided to almost package it in this way of, okay, I'm a global citizen. For example, you see a lot of Nigerians or Ghanaians that grew up in Nigeria or Ghana, but then they're now in London, or they're now in Edinburgh, or they're now in Boston doing higher education. They could say that they're a global citizen because they've now exposed themselves to different contexts. And I think that's what it's about. You are not just exposed to different contexts, but you're actively involved in the matters of that context. So for example, like even though I lived in the US for 8 years, I came back to the UK a lot because I care about the economy. There were a lot of things I could pour back into the systems here. Same with Nigeria. Germany, I haven't gotten there yet. But you know, it's this act of, okay, how can I use my knowledge that I've also learned in different places to spread to different places as well. And so, yeah, whether you've lived in one country, 2 countries, 3 countries, I think technology makes it very accessible now to learn about other countries. So I don't even think people have an excuse anymore because there's so much to know. There's so much to know and so much that's available to learn.
So what advice would you give to someone on managing stress and staying motivated?
I'll also rephrase and say, what advice would I give to myself? Because I need it as well. I would say something that really helped me was being quite individual in the way that I learned how to manage my stress. I say that because there are different things that work for a lot of different people. But just because it works for them doesn't mean that it'll work for you. For example, I remember when I was in uni, a lot of my friends would go to the library to do like group study sessions. But I know me myself that I can't focus if I'm in a group. I need to be by myself and no music. I just need to study. Well, it takes self-awareness. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Not necessarily being individual, but self-awareness.
Awareness.
It helps you to know what helps me in this moment of time. And also just talking to yourself continuously. Okay, this happened, this was my stressor, and this is how I'm able to, I guess, solve it or get through it. Also knowing yourself, okay, I prefer this over that, and being not necessarily unconditional, but being unapologetic about it. Because I know there would be times where someone would say, "Oh no, but do this," and then I'll do it, and it would stress me out. But me, I knew that I shouldn't have done it. So it's like knowing yourself enough to know what your boundaries are,
Oh,
and within those boundaries, there's still some autonomy that you can have. But
wow.
so far, that is what's helped me.
Wow. So, if in terms of continuing to be boundless or breaking boundaries, how do you plan to break further boundaries in life, in career?
Good question. On one hand, I would say seeking first the kingdom of God. There's nothing that I have been able to do in the past 5 years, or to be honest, my entire life, that hasn't been by the help of the Holy Spirit. So I know that me, as much as I claim that I'm boundless, it's because of the Holy Spirit that I have these ideas, that I'm creative, that I can have the energy to fly around the world and do different things like that. On the other hand, I would say continuing to be curious. The thing about me is that I like to test things. I like to just ask. I like to just push boundaries and see if it's possible. If it's not, okay, no one is hurt, that's fine. But I like to, if you know me well, or even if you don't know me that well, but you've heard my story, a lot of my story has been just trying, just being curious enough to challenge assumptions and challenge the status quo to see if there can be another path that can be created outside of the default path.
Thank you for that, because I've picked something. Just keep pushing the boundaries. So I'll keep asking, and I'll keep knocking, and I'll keep seeking.
Yes, exactly.
So, if you have one advice to offer young professionals who are striving to break boundaries in their own lives, what would be that advice you would give them?
I give this advice from personal experience, which is to not look down on the aspects of your life that you think are insignificant. As much as it might seem insignificant to you, there are always ways that you can package it that will seem significant and almost extraordinary to the people around you. It just takes you seeing the power in that and then pushing out to the world.
Yeah.
Because as I said, there's nothing special about me. It's just the way I've packaged it.
Yeah.
That I was able to write a book, that I was able to work at Microsoft. It's just the way that I've been able to package my journey. That's really it. But again, a lot of people look at their lives and be like, there's nothing interesting about me. I'm just ordinary. But you're not. Everyone has something special about them.
Definitely.
And it's there, like you have it, but it's also your responsibility to show the world that.
Okay, so you will give, I know you've worked in some places. In each of those places that you've worked before getting to rewriting the code space,
Yep.
in those spaces, mention them and one thing you've learned in those those areas.
Good question. Okay, so I first did a work experience at a startup based in Georgia in the US. And the one thing I learned from that company was how to, well, to be honest, I think that was the genesis of professionally pushing boundaries, because my job was to teach professionals how to use LinkedIn and Twitter to social sell, basically, the company that they work at. So I was able to take that information, apply it to my own life, and lo and behold, that's how I started my personal brand on LinkedIn, because I said, well, if I can do this for professionals in a professional manner, why can't I do this for myself? So that led me into then getting a opportunity to work at Google as a software engineer. That opportunity taught me how to go from learning nothing to learning something, because I had to learn Java and I knew nothing about Java. But at that point, I said, "Am I going to pass on this opportunity with Google because I don't know Java?" So I learned Java in the small amount of time that I had. I also had the opportunity to work at Comcast as a, I can't remember the title, but I worked at Comcast, which in the UK is like the equivalent to Sky. And that opportunity taught me about the value of people. Honestly, I would say that I didn't really do much work at Comcast, but my sole purpose at that moment in time was to talk to people, to learn from people, and see how I can be impacted and influenced by them. I also had an opportunity to work at Morgan Stanley. And again, that was similar. Like, I just wanted to build my network. And honestly, there were so many amazing people that I met. And before Microsoft, I worked at Bloomberg. I was a data engineer. Wow. And at that point, something that I learned was speaking up for myself.
Wow.
Because I was given a project that I didn't necessarily like. And I was there for 6 months. And I said, well, if I don't speak up, then I'll continue in this project for 6 months. And so I told them about, okay, these are the skills that I have that I think will be valuable for something else. And so I laid that on the table, and lo and behold, I was able to work on a project for diversity, equity, and inclusion,
Wow.
which was amazing. And then, of course, Microsoft, I was there, and that experience taught me about this whole insignificant versus significant aspect. A quick example I can give was that the product that I was working on was Bing Images, similar to Google Images. And I remember typing in ogbono soup. And in the ads, it came up with tomato soup, like canned tomato soup. And I said, hey, it's not the same thing. Ogbono and
Tomato soup.
In the Western world, it's not the same thing. And you think that that's small, but as a Nigerian or as a global citizen, I was able to go to the ad team and say, I understand that you think that because ogbono has soup in the name, that's the same as tomato soup, where it can be comparable. It's not.
They need to taste it.
Exactly. It's not the same. So I learned there that, yeah, no matter where my home is, there are things that I can take from my background and influence the space that I'm in. So, yeah.
I knew you. I watched your session at the United Nations. Was it United Nations? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a very wonderful session. Probably just. I mean, what was that? How has that experience also shaped your professional life?
Yeah. To be honest, that whole experience was very mind-blowing, because I said, who am I? 20, at that point I wasn't 25 yet, but I was like 23-year-old blessing speaking at the United Nations. I couldn't understand, especially on the topic of education. And I remember walking in the room and I'm seeing all these activists and people have NGOs. I said, who am I? I don't have any of this. Like, I'm just trying to dabble into that space. But again, I was able to see that, no, the work that I've been doing for 4 years is not for nothing. There is still a way that I can craft it, because what I was talking about at the United Nations was about youth skills development. And in university, that's one of the big things that I tried to help my fellow peers with and students with, about how do you develop your skills? How do you develop your personal brand on LinkedIn? And so honestly, it was mind-blowing meeting different presidents, different ministers of education. And it showed me that it's possible for someone like me to be in such a big room. It's not impossible, and it's not unattainable.
There's a question here as we wrap up by Olabisi Ayodele. Says, society, it said, is a wall of imprisonment, and humans are free but walk everywhere in chains. How can one live boundless in the world with boundaries without becoming lawbreakers?
Oh, wow, what a question to end. I'll give this visual, and I mentioned it before, that you have a box, which is the boundaries that you have to work within. But within the boundary, within the box, you have autonomy to move around. So the way I see it is like you have a box, you draw a box, but then inside you can do all these squiggles where you can go different directions, take different paths, have different colors, but you're still keeping within the box.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it's important to know, I think it takes a special skill to be able to know what are limitations versus what are limits that you're placing on yourself to say, I can't do this because of XYZ. It's a tough question. I can't answer it fully. But I think the biggest part of it is making sure that you yourself are boundless, because you can't aspire to create a boundless world or to live in this free world if you yourself are not free, if you yourself are shackled to the chains that you have in your own mind. So I think the first thing that a lot of people need to do, which I'm still doing myself, is to take the key and unlock the shackles that you've sometimes even placed on yourself by saying that you can't do this or you can't do that, and walk freely first, and then try and influence the world from that perspective.
I know that the world is bound because we're living in a world that is a globe, and I cannot just move out of Earth and bounce outside of the Earth. So, but
Right.
I think something that just resonates with me is that righteousness exalts a nation. I mean, doing right will make you live without breaking the law, but you are free in doing the right things. I know, I said earlier, this is not the end of this discussion because we've not even touched the book Bound to be Boundless. But Blessing, for this week, what's your drop mic shot for us? I usually end with Blessing Speaks. What would be that? Anything from your book or something like that?
Yeah. Hey, it's like I've forgotten everything that's in my book. I would say we kind of alluded to it in one of the chapters that you mentioned about the successful also cry, or the wealthy also cry. Being able to give grace to others and give grace to yourself, that no one has it all together. No one has it all together. You don't have it all together. The person next to you, the person you admire and look up to, doesn't have it all together. But we're all trying to figure it out in this life. And so give grace to yourself and give grace to others.
Give grace to yourself and give grace to others. Blessed, can we continue this next week? Because we need to talk about bound to be boundless. So we'll continue our discussion next week. But Blessing, has been wonderful. We're just scratching the surface. And want to thank you for coming to TouchPoint with Tayo today. Thank you everyone who had been part of this conversation today, the contribution, the question, and to just say this, someone also made mention concerning that question this is being said in Yoruba, but like the person that comes or into a city knowing its boundary is always safe within is let me say is awolumate iwonara lomo. You will not know, but it's like if you enter a city, you know your boundaries, and so you can live very well within that city, but you can live free but live very well within that city. So thank you everyone for joining this conversation today. We're living boundless, even though there are boundaries. As a young professional, as adults, as parents, as a woman, a man, especially for Africans living in the UK and in the diaspora. It's about changing our mindset. And let me tell you, next week we'll talk about that mindset of living boundless next week. Thank you, my production team. Thanks to my backroom team, the researchers, and the social media team. Thank you, listeners. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Blessing, for joining today. Next week is another time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And as I wrap up, remember, life unfolds uniquely. Run your race with grace, because it is within the race that grace finds its expression. I've been your host, Tayo Oweye. Join me next week as we continue with Blessing on living boundless, even within boundaries, and as we break boundaries also. I wish you a happy night rest. Good night.